is Heather and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about some books that are coming out in the year of 2025 that, have piqued my interest in some way or another. I've got authors I've read from before, authors I've never read from, authors I've never heard from, and we have quite a bit to discuss today, so let's just jump in. The first half of the year is a little bit more stacked than the second half of the year, as there are quite a few authors that don't have a set release date for the books that they're releasing, or we just don't know exactly when some authors are going to be releasing new things. But 2025 is shaping up to be a very, very hyped year for me, and we have romance, thriller, and fantasy to talk about today. Let's go. The first book that we're going to talk about is the new Sarah Adams novel. This is called Beg, Borrow, or Steal, and this book is about two teachers. That's really all I know about it. It's the third in the When in Rome series, which starts with When in Rome, and then Practice Makes Perfect, and then Beg, Borrow, or Steal. I don't know much else about it. I kind of like to go into these novels blind, but they are a fun, feel-good time, and I'm excited for Sarah Adams because she has become an author that I just genuinely enjoy her books. On January 14th, we have a new novel from Grady Hendrix, and this is called Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, and I'm just going to read you part of the synopsis right here. It says, "There's power in a book. They call them wayward girls, loose girls, girls who grew up too fast, and they're sent to Wellwood House in St. Augustine, Florida, where unwed mothers are hidden by their families to have their babies in secret, to give them up for adoption, and most importantly of all, to forget it ever happened. 15-year-old Fern arrives at the home in the sweltering summer of 1970, pregnant, terrified, and alone. Under the watchful eye of the stern Miss Wellwood, she meets a dozen other girls in the same predicament. There's Rose, a hippie who insists she's going to find a way to keep her baby and escape to a commune, and Zinnia, a budding musician who plans to marry the baby's father, and Holly, a wisp of a girl, barely 14, mute and pregnant by God knows who. Everything the girls eat, every moment of their waking day, and everything they're allowed to talk about is strictly controlled by adults who claim to know what's best for them. Then Fern meets a librarian who gives her an occult book about witchcraft, and power is in the hands of the girls for the first time in their life. But power can destroy as easily as it creates, and it's never given freely. There's always a price to be paid, and it's usually paid in blood." So I like Grady Hendrix because he mixes the horror with humor, but also mostly social commentary, and I feel like there is a lot to say about the topic at hand in this book, so I'm excited to give it a read. Another thriller that is debuting on the 14th is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. Now, if you are a Book of the Month subscriber like I am, then you probably already have this book in your possession because it was an early release in December, but it does come out officially on the 14th, and here is the synopsis. Author Grady Green is having the worst day of his life. Grady calls his wife to share some exciting news as she's driving home. He hears Abby slam on the brakes, get out of the car, then nothing. When he eventually finds her car by the cliff edge, the headlights are on, the driver door is open, her phone is still there, but his wife has disappeared. A year later, Grady is still overcome with grief and desperate to know what happened to Abby. He can't sleep and he can't write, so he travels to a tiny Scottish island to try to get his life back on track. Then he sees the impossible, a woman who looks exactly like his missing wife. So I have enjoyed Alice Feeney books in the past, and I'm really hoping Beautiful Ugly is no exception. I am hoping to get to it before the new year so that I can give you my thoughts before the actual release date if you're interested, but I love a good thriller, especially when it's released in January, because it helps me fly through some of my first reads of the year. On January 21st, this book doesn't really need much of a synopsis or a recap, but we have Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This is the third in the Fourth Wing series following Violet Sorrengail, who is a dragon rider going to an elite dragon rider academy so that she can be trained for the military. But of course, there's so much more to the book than that. It is romantasy in its finest, and I know me and a lot of other people are highly looking forward to January 21st to get our hands on this book. Then on January 23rd, we have a book by Lyra Celine, which is called A Crown So Silver. This is the second book in the Fairfolk trilogy that started with A Feather So Black. I have actually not gotten to A Feather So Black yet, but I have a few friends that have read it and absolutely loved it, like some of their top reads of 2024. So I will be getting to A Feather So Black very soon so that I can pick up the sequel, A Crown So Silver. I don't know much about this book other than it's very Celtic Welsh inspired, and that it is a retelling of The Swan Princess, which say no more, that sounds amazing. So if you're like me and you plan to enjoy the first book, or you've already enjoyed the first book, the sequel is right around the corner. On February 4th, we have a romance release by an author a lot of us know and love, and that is Ali Hazelwood with her college new adult romance called Deep End. I don't know much about this one, but it seems to be set at a college, and we're following both kind of an elite diver as well as an elite swimmer, and their romance. I have pretty much liked everything I've ever read by Ali Hazelwood, so I'm really excited to get this one a chance. And side note, I just really like the purple teal combination on the cover. On February 11th, we have a really anticipated romance release by B.K. Borison. This is the author of the Love Light Farms Quartet, which I've read half of and I've loved, and I kind of am scared to read the latter half of that series just because I loved the first half so much. But she writes romance that is mixed with real life and like other problems besides just the romance so well. Her characters feel so fleshed out to me, and like the world that she builds around them just feels like a real place and time. But she has a new series that's being released on February 11th, and the first book is First Time Caller. So here is what First Time Caller says. Aiden Valentine has a secret. He's fallen out of love with love. And as the host of Baltimore's romance hotline, that's a bit of a problem. But when a young girl calls into the station asking for dating advice for her mom, the interview goes viral, thrusting Aiden and Heartstrings into the limelight. Lucy Stone thought she was doing just fine. She has a good job, an incredible family, and a smart, slightly devious kid. But when all of Baltimore is suddenly scrutinizing her love life, or lack thereof, she begins to question if she's as happy as she believed. Maybe a little more romance wouldn't be such a bad thing. Everyone wants Lucy to find her happy ending, even the handsome, temperamental man calling the shots. But when sparks start to fly behind the scenes, Lucy must make the final decision between the radio-sponsored Happily Ever After or the man in the headphones next to her. This sounds so fun, and I don't know if any of you were like me and grew up watching Frasier reruns, but this sounds like the best parts of Frasier mixed with love story, and I'm here for it. It just looks so cute, it sounds so good, and it looks like it's going to be the perfect Valentine's read since it comes out right around that time. On February 18th, we have another highly anticipated sequel, and that is Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli. The first book was Heartless Hunter if you live in America, or Crimson Moth if you live overseas, but it was just a really, really fun witch hunter romantasy young adult book, and I had the time of my life reading it. And I know a lot of us are really looking forward to getting to the sequel because lots of things that were very explosive happened at the end of that first book, and we want to know how this duology is going to end. Releasing on February 25th is a fantasy by an author who I have not read, but I know is very beloved by a lot of people in the fantasy and kind of like the OG romantasy community, and that is Juliette Marillier. She has a book coming out called The Amber Owl, and this book was actually really hard to find. I saw it on an anticipated releases list, but then when I went to look at Amazon and typed in The Amber Owl, nothing came up. But when I went to her website and clicked on the link through her website, it did come up. So here's the synopsis. Stacia lives in an isolated farming village on the edge of the mysterious Heartwood Forest with her unusual dog for company. Thought odd by the locals, she is tolerated for her rare gift with animals. Engaging with her fellow humans is difficult with one exception. Goatherd Lucas, who shares her love of storytelling. The peace of Heartwood is shattered when a group of soldiers descends under orders from the ruler of the Northlands. Their mission, to hack a path through the forest and find fabled treasures said to lie deep within. Under the grueling decree, Stacia's village falls into chaos. The task is clearly impossible. The forest is alive with bears and wolves, and the old tales speak of evil spirits, monsters, and uncanny beings. Nobody has ever gone deep into the Heartwood Forest and returned safe and well. When Stacia raises her voice in protest, she is removed from her beloved home and transported to court, a different world. Word of her special skill has reached the ruler's ears, and Lady Elisabetta has a job for her. But Stacia will not break her vow to protect the forest, even under the most appalling threat. Help comes from an unlikely quarter. Secrets abound, dangers lie everywhere, and it's hard to tell friend from foe. As Stacia and her band of unlikely allies embark on a perilous mission, it becomes apparent that uncanny forces may indeed be involved. Maybe the old tales of the hermit are true. This just sounds like a book that is kind of built around a love of nature and kind of classic fantasy. And I don't know, it sounds really good to me. The cover is beautiful, and I have heard really good things about Juliette Marillier's writing, so this has me on the edge of my seat. I don't have as many books being released in March, but the first one is Wildside by Elsie Silver. I read the first book in this Rose Hill series and I absolutely fell in love with it. I love Elsie Silver's writing, and she gets better and better with every series that she puts out. This one is set in a very small town, and we've got just like this really close cast of characters and we're following their romances, and I don't want to say too much about it. I don't even want to know which character this book is about, but I've really enjoyed this and I can't wait to pick up another book by Elsie Silver. Then on March the 11th, we have another book by a very highly acclaimed romance author for a lot of people, and that is Lucy Score. She has got a new small town romance series coming out, and the tagline says Gilmore Girls meets Schitt's Creek, which say no more, but let's look at a little bit more about this story. It is called Story of My Life. Hazel is given a 1-2 punch when she's forced to move out of her Upper East Side apartment and is given a warning from her publisher. If she doesn't turn a book in by her next deadline, they are cutting her loose. Hazel rashly decides to leave what's left of her city behind and impulse buys a house in rural Pennsylvania, sight unseen. How better to entertain the loyal readers she still has and rediscover her writing mojo than immersing herself in small town life. Too bad this town looks like it's on its last legs. At least she's finding swoon-worthy inspiration from her hot, grumpy contractor Cam and his animal rescuing, community-involved family. It's all just research. What could go wrong? This book sounds fun, literally sounds like it could be an episode of Gilmore Girls or Schitt's Creek, and sometimes that's just what my brain wants. I'm hoping for this fun story in one of Lucy Score's longer books, and I'm really excited about it. April is a really, really, really big month for releases, and we're starting strong on April 1st with a new Abby Jimenez. You guys know, top 5 author of all time for me, and her book is called Say You'll Remember Me. I'm not going to read the whole synopsis because those that want to know about it probably already know about it, but just in case you don't, this book follows a girl who has like the best date ever with this veterinarian. He's like so swoon-worthy and they have the best time ever, but things are happening in her life, making her realize that now is not the time for a relationship, and they promise to just kind of hold on to the memory and forget each other, but they can't. So I'm excited to read this one and just kind of kick my feet and giggle because that is what Abby Jimenez makes me do, as well as cry. She makes me cry a lot. On April 11th, we have a romantasy coming out called The Wind Weaver by Julie Johnson. This book has a big old phoenix on the cover, which instantly has me intrigued. You just don't read many phoenix stories. But this one says, hold please, magic and adventure swirl through this spellbinding romantasy where a young woman reignites the embers of an ancient prophecy, unleashing a storm that could save her realm or doom them all. Just to read a little bit of it because the synopsis is a little bit long. Fear of magic plagues war-torn Anwen. Halflings like Raya Fleetwood are killed on sight, but Raya's execution is interrupted by an unexpected savior, one far more terrifying than her would-be killers, the mysterious mercenary Commander Scythe. In the clutches of this new enemy, Raya finds herself fleeing for her life in the barren reaches of the Northlands. Yet the farther she gets from home, the more she learns that nothing is as it seems, not her fearsome captor, not the blight that ravages her dying realm, not even herself. For Raya is no ordinary halfling. Then it goes on to just kind of give you some more details. But guys, I'm here for a well-done romantasy, not a romantasy that feels like every other romantasy, so I'm gonna give this one a shot. The cover instantly has me intrigued though. Also coming out on April 8th is Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. This is the sequel to Phantasma, which I have not read yet, but people have been yelling at me to read it, so I will be reading it very soon, and it is my hopes that I will love that book so I can get to the sequel, which is coming out on April the 8th. And I think this is more of a companion novel than a direct sequel, but I think you do have to read the first one first. I'm not going to read the synopsis since I haven't read the first one, but the tagline with the title says Enchantra, a spicy fantasy romance, Wicked Games, book 2. So, like I said, hopefully I like it. Coming out on April the 15th is the 4th book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, which is called Wild and Wrangled. This is a fun cowboy romance series, kind of in the vein of Chestnut Springs, but it definitely has its own charm going for it. I've read the first book, but intend to catch up very soon on the next 2 so that I can get to the 4th. This one, by far, has my favorite cover out of all 4 of them, and cowboy romance is just fun, right? A little fluffy, a good time, yeehaw, but it's just fun. On April the 22nd, we have another highly anticipated romance for a lot of people, and that is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Emily Henry overall is just an A+ author for me. She's got a couple that didn't work for me, but that's a me problem, not a her problem, because she's a fantastic writer, and this one sounds so good. Without reading the whole synopsis, you've basically got 2 rivaling authors who write in different genres. She likes to do that, but they are headed to this remote place to interview this woman, and they're competing in hopes to write this woman's life story, kind of Evelyn Hugo-esque. However, this woman is only giving them bits and pieces to work with over the course of a month trial period, and she's not giving them the same bits of information. So they're having to take little snippets, compete against each other with those snippets, but they have both signed ironclad NDAs saying that they are not going to discuss the details with each other, while they also happen to be falling for each other in the process. It sounds so good. It's got so many little pieces of other things that I've loved. And while Funny Story wasn't the biggest hit for me, this one sounds like it could be right up my alley, and I'm so excited for it. I wrote the date wrong down for this next one, but also on April 15th, we have a release from Paige Toon. This is an author I've not read from, but I have gotten recommended this author a couple of different times. I know Brittany with Books with Brittany really likes this author, and she has a release called What If I Never Get Over You? And here's the synopsis for it. Since I've never read her, I need the synopsis to, get my attention. 3 days to fall in love, 6 years to try to forget. Ellie didn't expect to fall in love while interrailing through Europe, but she also didn't expect to meet a man like Ash. 3 blistering days in Lisbon is all it takes to form an unforgettable connection, a bond deep enough for them to scrap their itineraries and plan to meet again in Spain. But Ellie arrives late and Ash is nowhere to be found. 6 years later, Ellie has landed her dream job working as a gardener for a Viscount and Viscountess on their sprawling 500-year-old estate in Wales. She finds peace among the flowering topiary hedges and colorful gardens, but her ideal is shattered when Ash crashes back into her life. And when it becomes clear why he didn't show in Madrid, her heart breaks anew for what the truth means for their fate. But they have never been able to resist each other, and when the sparks of their attraction fly, Ellie's life will catch flame. She will have to make a choice. One of the blurbs says, one day meets a contemporary Bridgerton. That sounds really good. The only thing I'm hoping for this is that it doesn't have cheating, because I hate cheating in romance books. So it sounds like star-crossed lovers that missed their chance, and a second chance at that. And I hear that she writes really, really emotional books, and I love me a good cry. Jumping into May, on the 13th, we have the only book I have for May at the moment, and that is A Curse Carved in Bone. This is the second after A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. And the first one was a good book for me. I gave it a 3 star. I think it has potential if it can fix the things I didn't love in book 1 and build on the things that I did love. And this is a very Viking Norse inspired fantasy, and we ended on quite the cliffhanger, so I'm excited to get into book 2. I don't know why, but the cover is making me think that things are about to get a little bit darker, and I'm excited for it. Okay, I'm a little unsure whether this book that I'm about to talk about comes out in May or June. I had it written down for June, but Amazon says May 20th. And that book is My Friends by Frederick Bachman. I really do think Frederick Bachman is my favorite author of all time, and I'm scared to keep reading his books because I don't want to exist in a time where I have nothing else by him to read. But My Friends is his new release for 2025, and the synopsis says, most people don't even notice them. 3 tiny figures sitting at the end of a long pier in the corner of one of the most famous paintings in the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of the sea. But Louisa, an aspiring artist herself, knows otherwise, and she is determined to find out the story of these 3 enigmatic figures. 25 years earlier, in a distant seaside town, a group of teenagers find refuge from their bruising home lives by spending long summer days on their abandoned pier, telling silly jokes, sharing secrets, and committing small acts of rebellion. These lost souls find in each other a reason to get up each morning, a reason to dream, a reason to love. Out of that summer emerges a transcendent work of art, a painting that will unexpectedly be placed into 18-year-old Louisa's care. She embarks on a surprise-filled cross journey to learn that the painting came to be and decide what to do with it. The closer she gets to the painting's birthplace, the more nervous she becomes about what she'll find. Louisa is proof that happy endings don't always take the form we expect in this stunning testament to the transformative, timeless power of friendship and art. I'm going to sob. You guys know I will be here for everything that Riley Sager releases, and so June 10th we have his new novel coming. I have really enjoyed when he starts to play with more historical times and settings, and this book is that. So we have the book With a Vengeance, and this one says one train, no stops, a deadly game of survival and revenge. I'm not even gonna read anymore. It's 1942 and we're on a train, so it's a closed room mystery. It sounds like he is taking some inspiration from Agatha Christie, and I cannot wait to binge this because I will. On June 17th, we have a new Ashley Poston novel. Most of her stuff works for me. I didn't love her last release, but I'm excited for this one. It's called Sounds Like Love. A hit-making songwriter and a bitter musician share a startling and inexplicable connection that they'll do anything to shake in the next sparkling, magical book from Ashley Poston. Ashley Poston just writes these kind of magical realism, supernatural love stories in a way that is so fun and whimsical, but also hard-hitting. And so I really like that this one is based around music, and I'll give it a read. Jumping into July, on the 8th, we have a book by Sora Omar called The Griffin King. The synopsis on this is really long, and at first glance, I thought it was romantasy. It sounds like it is an epic fantasy trilogy, and it says the first in a sweeping Southwest Asian-inspired epic fantasy trilogy brimming with morally ambiguous characters, terrifying ghouls, and deadly monsters. Combining cutthroat dynastic politics with expansive world building and slow-burning romance, this stunning debut is perfect for fans of Godkiller and Samantha Shannon. So I'm not going to read any more than that. The synopsis is really long. I will try and have all of these linked. They might not be linked when this video first goes up, but check back. I will get them linked. And it just sounds like it could be a really kind of new spin on fantasy that we haven't seen, and I am interested in it. The series is called The Chaos Constellation. Then on July 15th, we have the next installment after The Spell Shop, which is called The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. We read the first one over on Patreon as a book club pick, and I think we all had a really good experience with it. It's cozy, whimsical, charming, a little bit of romance, but mostly just like really capitalizing on the cozy aspect in the setting. And so this second book is more of a companion novel in the series rather than a direct sequel. But knowing what I know about the first book, I'm excited to see where this one goes. And I also love that there's just a little winged cat in every single one of her covers for this series, and I hope that continues. Okay, well, my internet just decided to poop out on the last book, but that's okay because this book doesn't even have a cover yet. But on October the 7th, we have probably my most anticipated sequel of the year. It is the book following When the Moon Hatched, which was my favorite romantasy that I read in the last year. And this is by Sarah A. Parker. And so on October the 7th, we are getting The Ballad of Falling Dragons. I just know that I am in for like the most adventurous, emotional, hard-hitting time of my life. If you like really, really intense, detailed fantasy that happens to be romantasy, and there's dragons everywhere, and there's rich worlds, and the magic is stunning, and you believe every single relationship in this book, and it kind of feels like you're playing an open world video game, this is the series for you, and I can't wait to continue in it. There is one more book I wanted to talk about that's coming out in May. I had forgotten to write it down. But on May the 6th, Devney Perry is releasing a fantasy romantasy novel with Red Tower Books. Now, a lot of you might know Devney Perry because she wrote the Eden series, and she also wrote Crossroads and Sunlight, and these are like Montana small town ranch books. But she's got a romantasy coming out that is called Shield of Sparrows. Again, that's with Red Tower. And because it's with Red Tower, we already know the cover and the sprayed edges are gorgeous, but let's listen to the synopsis too. There's really not that much that it says as of right now, but so far, don't miss out on the stunning blah, blah, blah. Okay, all it says in the synopsis is, Devney Perry's Shield of Sparrows, a swoon-worthy romantic fantasy filled with legends and monsters, is The Witcher meets Cinderella. I really hope that it captures those comps well, because like the dark grittiness and like intense world building of The Witcher meeting the whimsical fairy tale of Cinderella could be so cool if it's done well. So I'm crossing my fingers that this isn't just like a pretty Red Tower book that fails on the inside. I'm hoping that we get everything that we love from this book. But that is everything that I have written down for 2025 so far. Obviously, as books are released, I will get hyped for those as well. But it's always fun to just kind of start planning your year around these new releases. Is there anything that you're excited for that I didn't talk about, or are you eyeing any of these releases as heavily as I am, because I'm so excited? If you watched all the way to the end of this video, leave me the clap emoji because we are very excited for these releases, as well as anything else that you'd just like to chat about. I'm always here. My social medias are all linked below, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video very soon. Bye guys.